be really clear about if you want to have great relationships is let your imagination be big. Have a big vision of what you want to experience. While we're in relationship, we might as well go for the gold. Sometimes people say you got to get your expectations tamped down. I say no with that.
Got to be realistic.
Let your expectations be big as long as you've got an intention to match. If you've got lofty goals for having exquisite, fulfilling relationships, that's grand. Go for it. It may take a while, might have to do some real serious work with yourself, collaborate, get some consultation, learn some things. But if you've got intentionality and you've got fire in the belly and you've got commitment, it is available. Just for us ordinary folks, we can have great relationships.
Wow, I'm inspired.
Yeah.
Even for people who came from bad families?
We
that
did.
Didn't have a good...
We came from
Speak for
dysfunctional
yourself.
families.
Well, it's all about commitment. You know, commitment isn't necessarily a prison. Commitment is a path to freedom. And when you practice commitment in a relationship, what you're doing is you are bringing an intention to invite the other person into the same level of involvement, that you can count on each other to be there unconditionally and to hang in there even when things inevitably get difficult or challenging or scary. That the commitment is the container that holds the essence of the relationship. It's what it is that enables us to feel safe, to be authentic, and to be ourselves. Because if we know that this person is in it for the duration, if we know that we're in it for the duration, if we trust that no matter what comes up, there's an intention to work things out and not only survive them, but to grow from the challenges, to thrive from them. If we know that that's there and we can count on ourselves to be committed, to be trustworthy, then what we're likely to get from our partner is the same thing. When people don't honor their commitments, then it's often because they're afraid that they may not get in return what it is that they're giving. And the irony is that when you do act that way, then you are likely to get a response from your partner that reaffirms that they're not committed, because you're not displaying the kind of commitment that they need to see in order to feel safe themselves. So commitment it's the essence of what it is. It's the basis for any healthy relationship. And it's not commitment to a person, but it's commitment to a shared intention for what it is that we both are here to experience and create together.
Live in integrity. Integrity comes from the word integer, which means one. So one, what we feel and think and say and do is all lined up as one. We are living in integrity. And it's a piece of work, and that's what responsible grown-ups are doing. They're living in integrity.
Becoming a skilled warrior, practicing conscious combat. And there will be combat. And it's not necessarily a bad thing when differences show up. The differences complement who we are and what we're giving. And it's what makes us want to be with that other person. It's because they can bring something that can awaken aspects of ourselves that we don't have access to. But in the process of doing that, sometimes there's fear. And when we deal with that fear by being defensive, it can feel to the other person like we're being offensive. So defensiveness is a form of control. It's an attempt to control. And the practice that can help us to move beyond that, the antidote to that need to control, is the cultivation of courage. And it takes courage to be a warrior of the heart. But that's what relationships require. That's what successful relationships really involve, is the willingness to put ourselves out there and to simultaneously keep our hearts open. Not easy, but it's possible. And the more we practice that, the more natural it becomes to be that way.
Take personal responsibility. In other words, don't be a victim, don't be passive, don't withdraw from the challenge, lean into the challenge, be proactive, be assertive, be clear about what you want and what you need and what you must have to thrive in the relationship, and get in there and mix it up and negotiate for your needs. Because if we expect the other person to do it for us, it's going to be a long wait. They may not have the same goals or the same style or the same values or the same needs that we do. We are responsible for seeing to it that if it's important to us, if it is truly a deep need for us to be fulfilled, we need to go about finding creative ways to be in relationship with that other person that is a compelling invitation that they will meet us and that we will meet them, and have this reciprocal agreement where the energy is flowing and we really want each other both to be happy. Earlier, Charlie mentioned enlightened self-interest. When you realize that your partner's happiness is going to have a huge impact on your own, you really want to know what lights them up. You want to know how they want to be loved. You want to take full responsibility for seeing to it that you both are having your needs met, because that's the only way you will both be able to thrive in your lives.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to be responsible for is the establishment and the strengthening of what we consider to be the most important quality in a relationship, and that is trust. To really trust the other person to be honest, genuine, authentic, and sincere, so that we can really count on them. But what's even more important than that is for us to be trustworthy. That we are worthy of their trust of us. We are worthy of our own trust. That we can look to become the person that we really want them to be. That we can be the partner of our dreams, as they say, rather than looking for the partner of our dreams. So to be trustworthy means that I'm living in integrity with who I am. And my word is good. That when I say something, I honor it. I don't make excuses when things don't go in accordance with what I promised they would, but I acknowledge breakdowns that I have participated in or contributed to. this isn't something that may be comfortable, and it may be something that a lot of us try to avoid out of fear of blame or punishment. But to be trustworthy requires us to be willing to own whatever it is that we have done that has had a positive or negative impact on the relationship. So, in addition to being able to create trust, what's equally important is to be able to repair damaged trust. Because like Linda said a little earlier, relationships don't go on a trajectory that is consistently upward. They kind of tend to go up and then down, and then they may flatten out, and then they may go up again. And trust is the same way. There are times, even in the best of relationships, where there can be a betrayal of trust. Doesn't necessarily have to be huge, but even a small betrayal can be very painful. And the willingness and the skill that's necessary to repair damaged trust is one of the most essential qualities that we can bring to a relationship. And the way you get to become better at repairing it is to experience it and to put the time into what it requires and become skilled at it.
Come to terms with past incompletions. And what we mean by that is we all have places in our past where we feel there's energy tied up. Now, we might not get it resolved once and for all, but we can address it, face into it, tell the truth about it, even if it goes way, way back. Some of these incompletions go all the way back into childhood. To the degree that we are incomplete, we're leaking energy. So we don't have our full set of energy available to us to thrive in our lives. We've got a hole here and a hole there and a leak there, and somebody betrayed me back in 1986, so I'm not sure if I want to trust again, and I had my heart broken here, and I still got incomplete issues with mom or dad. We need to somehow lay those to rest. We may need to do some work around forgiving those who harmed us in the past. Maybe it's not family of origin issues. Maybe it's an ex who betrayed us. And to the degree that we haven't accepted the fact that they were doing the best they could at the level of consciousness they had arrived at, and they couldn't have done better than that, even though they may have caused a tremendous amount of harm, we're tied up there. And in our present relationship, there may have been hurts and disappointments and betrayals, broken trust, broken agreements. And we need to somehow get complete with those so the heaviness of that energy, we're not encumbered by it. We need to lighten ourselves so that we can travel more freely, more lightly through our lives.
So one of the ways that we can unburden ourselves of some of the things that keep us from traveling more lightly is by honoring and acknowledging and accepting our shadow, those parts of us that we have disowned or denied out of fear of how we would be perceived or how we might be treated by people who might not want to accept them. And honoring the shadow is a cultivated art. It's not something that many people do because the tendency, what we've learned for the most part, is to try to conceal the aspects of the shadow that we don't feel comfortable with and that we're afraid of being judged for. And it feels safer to do that than to expose or acknowledge parts of ourselves that are in the shadow, those aspects like fearfulness or anger or desire to control or envy or shame, whatever it is that we have decided is not acceptable. But the more we do that, it's like when we withdraw from fear, we become more fearful. When we deny the shadow takes more control over us, and our need to, or our desire to live in denial of it becomes an overriding force in our lives. The way we come to honor the shadow is, first of all, to see that it's not the enemy. It's a part of us that has a purpose, and it's there for a reason. And when we can accept that and the legitimacy of it and the validity of it, then we will be much less afraid of other people's judgments. Whether they do or not won't become quite as important to us. And they'll be much less likely to judge us, including those people with whom we're in close relationship. They'll be much less likely to judge us than they would be if we were busy trying to hide it.
Honor sexuality. We are natural, normal beings that have been gifted by nature with sensual and sexual pleasure. If there are ways that we're inhibited because of things we've been taught with our family or our religious belief system or people who have hurt us and we have traumas, then we have a responsibility to investigate those and heal ourselves so that we're free to indulge in our sexuality that doesn't harm anybody else. As long as we run it through that fine sieve of harmlessness, we can revel in it and rejoice in it. And it is a very wonderful way to show love to self and other. It's to exchange that pleasure that enlivens and tickles and perks us up.
Sounds good to me. Establishing a spirit of goodwill in the relationship. Goodwill is simply the desire for the other person to experience a high level of well-being. It's wanting the best for them. It's caring as much about their well-being and their happiness as we do our own. Not necessarily more, but at least as much. You know, we were saying earlier about the challenge of relationships. What can make them so challenging is that those two seemingly contradictory requirements. One, to be able to fulfill our own needs and to be attentive to ourselves in a way that those needs get met, but also at the same time to give our caring, loving attention to another person and to nurture the relationship between us. Mm-hmm. Those two things, both of those things have to be met. They have to be fulfilled in order for us to really experience a high level of well-being. So establishing the spirit of goodwill is one of the most efficient ways that we can bring that about. What goes along with the spirit of goodwill is the compassionate heart, the spirit of compassion. Compassion literally means to suffer with, to feel someone else's experience at a very deep level, to feel that what it is that they're experiencing without necessarily needing for them to be any different than the way they are, to honor the legitimacy of that feeling without trying to take it away from them. It's been said that pity is different from compassion in that pity is meeting pain with fear. When someone's in pain and we have fear for them or we have fear for ourselves, we feel pity for them. And pity feels very different to the recipient than compassion does. It doesn't feel good. It feels like they're separate from us and they're looking down on us. Compassion is meeting pain with love rather than fear. Cultivating compassion, the compassionate heart, is a gift not only to the person with whom we're in relationship, but to ourselves as well.
Practice co-creativity. This is throwing together with another person and bringing their strengths and our strengths and their skill set and our skill set and their passion and our passion, and weaving in that some beautiful design that we create together. I love the idea of co-creativity is like throwing ideas like confetti. You have this upwelling of inspiration and this demand that you make beauty in the world and that you create aliveness in the world and that you touch people with your ideas and invite them to co-create with you. And it can take all kinds of forms. It can be making a garden together. It could be the way you decorate your home together. It could be the way you raise your children together or you participate in your community. It's the way in which you design your life together. And it is an absorbing and it is an enlivening process to practice co-creativity.
So last but not least is the practice of expressing appreciation and gratitude towards those people in your life that you love. And you can't do this too much. No matter how much you do it, there's always room for more. And sometimes it's the people with whom we are the closest that we can be the most negligent about expressing gratitude and appreciation. We can take them for granted sometimes because they're always there, you know, and we don't always remember that this is an essential ingredient to a loving relationship and that it needs to be expressed on an ongoing basis. I don't mean to say that, you know, we have to just get obsessed with it and say it all day, every day, but to notice those little things that they do, that those little acts of kindness, those little acts of generosity that we appreciate. And how many times have you thought to yourself, oh, that's really nice, I like that, I should tell her that, and then forgotten to, or something else came up. And it's, I think, because we don't realize, we don't remember that this is the stuff that feeds relationships. This is what strengthens them, is this expression of gratitude, of appreciation, this sincere expression of feelings, of the benefit that we gain from being in relationship with this person. And to be specific about it. Not just to say, hey, you know, you're a great person, or you're a good cook, or, you know, I like it when you appreciate it when you do things for me. I mean, that's nice, but get specific.
Give me the details.
Yeah. Like, you know, I just love it when you make my favorite dish and surprise me with it. And it's just, I just love you when you do that for me. So it's just remembering how much this means to us and to each other. And when we get a cycle going where we can begin to really create this reciprocal exchange of appreciation, that's making it. That's a 10.